She threw him out into the freezing rain with nothing but a soggy cardboard box, laughing in his face as she slammed the door. She called him a failure. She called him trash. But she made a fatal mistake. She didn't know that the useless box in his trembling hands held a secret invention worth $1 billion. In a world blinded by greed and status, it's terrifyingly easy to be discarded like garbage when you're down on your luck. We've all felt the sting of being underestimated, of screaming our worth into a void that refuses to listen. But what happens when the loser holds the keys to the kingdom? This is the heart-pounding story of Owen Richardson, a genius stripped of his dignity, and Sarah Ellis, the struggling waitress who saw a human being where everyone else saw a bum. This isn't just a story about money or revenge, it's a testament to the fact that sometimes, the only thing standing between ruin and redemption is a single act of kindness. Get ready for an emotional roller coaster fueled by shocking betrayal, heartbreaking poverty, and a race against time that will leave you breathless. We are going from the cold pavement to the high-stakes boardroom, proving once and for all that true worth can't be measured by a bank account. If you believe that karma always comes for the greedy and that the good guys deserve to win, you've found your family. Smash that subscribe button to join our community, hit the like button to support this message, and let's dive straight into the story that will restore your faith in humanity. Let's go. Thunder cracked like a whip across the obsidian sky, mirroring the fracture in Owen Richardson's soul as he was physically kicked out of his own sanctuary. The heavy oak doors slammed shut with a finality that vibrated through his bones, the sound of the lock clicking serving as the death knell of his marriage to a ruthless gold digger. Rain instantly soaked his clothes, plastering them to his shivering frame, while inside, the warmth he had paid for with his blood and sweat was denied to him. He stood paralyzed on the marble steps, gripping a soggy cardboard box that contained his useless prototype, unaware that this very box held a secret invention destined to rewrite history. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was a surgical removal of his dignity, performed by the person who vowed to cherish him. He looked down at the device, a chaotic nest of wires and circuits shielded from the downpour by his own trembling body, realizing the irony of his existence. To the world and his husband-hunting ex-wife, he was a failure, a man who couldn't monetize his dreams fast enough to fuel her vanity. She had severely underestimated the brilliance dormant within those silicon chips, blinded by her craving for instant status rather than long-term legacy. It is a cruel twist of fate how the ones closest to us can be the furthest from understanding our true worth, discarding diamonds because they are covered in coal. The storm raged on, washing away the facade of his suburban paradise, leaving only the raw, jagged edges of a messy divorce. The humiliation burned hotter than the freezing rain. He was being discarded like a broken toy, humiliated in front of the silent, judging eyes of the neighborhood security cameras. She wanted a tech mogul ready-made, not a visionary in the messy chrysalis stage of creation, and she had made that painfully clear with her venomous insults. Her cackling laughter echoed in his mind, a haunting soundtrack that promised karma would one day balance the scales, though that day felt impossibly distant. He was stripped of his assets, his home, and his pride, left with nothing but the clothes on his back and a dream that felt heavier with every step. Heartbreaking barely captures the visceral agony of watching your life dismantle in real time, the pieces scattering into the gutter. Owen stared at his reflection in a puddle, seeing a ghost of the man he used to be, overwhelmed by a wave of instant regret for ignoring the red flags. He had poured unconditional love into a black hole, hoping it would eventually reflect light, only to be consumed by its gravitational pull of greed. It is a bitter, poisonous pill to swallow when you realize you were never a partner, but merely a utility, a stepping stone to be kicked away once the elevation was achieved. Yet, in the darkest trench of his despair, a cold, hard ember of defiance began to glow in the pit of his stomach. He wasn't just a victim of circumstance, he was a sleeping dragon, and that box was his fire. They say the best revenge is massive success, but Owen wasn't thinking of yachts or penthouses, he was thinking of pure, unadulterated survival. This invention was his lifeline, his path to vindication against a society that measures a man's soul by the size of his wallet. With a deep, ragged breath that tasted of ozone and misery, Owen turned his back on the iron gates of his former life, stepping into the abyss. He had no safety net, no allies, and no destination, guided only by the cruel hand of destiny pushing him forward. The distant city lights flickered like indifferent stars, calling him toward a future that was currently shrouded in fog and uncertainty. He began the long trudge into the night, the squelch of his soaked shoes keeping time with his racing heart, unaware that salvation lay in the unlikeliest of places. As the adrenaline of the eviction faded, the gnawing reality of the cold set in, his fingers turning white around the cardboard box. He needed a fortress, no matter how small, to protect the delicate circuitry that represented his last hope. His eyes, stinging from the rain, scanned the desolate street until they locked onto a flickering neon sign buzzing in the distance. It was a beacon of grease and warmth, a place where paths were about to collide in a life-changing encounter that would echo through eternity. The neon sign of the diner buzzed with a rhythmic, dying hum, the letter E flickering like a distress signal that matched Owen's fractured spirit. He pushed through the heavy glass door, the jingle of the bell announcing his entrance to a room that smelled of stale coffee, burnt toast, and weary souls. It was far from the Michelin star establishments he used to frequent, but to a man who had just been ruthlessly kicked out, it felt like a cathedral of warmth. He shuffled toward the furthest booth, his soaked sneakers squeaking on the checkered linoleum, trying desperately to make himself invisible to the world. Sarah Ellis stood behind the counter, her uniform stained and her eyes carrying the weight of double shifts and unpaid utility bills. She wiped a glass with mechanical precision, her gaze sharpening as she took in the sight of the disheveled, dripping man collapsing into the booth. Most people would see a vagrant, a potential problem to be managed or ejected, but Sarah possessed a rare gift for seeing the heartbreaking humanity beneath the grime.
She grabbed a coffee pot, her movements fluid despite her exhaustion, and began to walk toward him, driven by an empathy that defied her own poverty. Owen kept his head low, hunching over the soggy cardboard box containing his secret invention, shielding it from view with the paranoia of a wounded animal. He braced himself for the inevitable rejection, expecting to be humiliated once again, just as his wife had done hours before. When Sarah's shadow fell over the table, he flinched, his muscles tensing for a confrontation, waiting for the command to leave. Instead, a voice as soft and warm as the coffee she carried broke the silence. "You look like you've gone 12 rounds with a hurricane, honey." He slowly lifted his gaze, meeting eyes that held no judgment, only a raw, piercing curiosity that unsettled his defensive walls. There was no sneer, no disgust, just a simple acknowledgement of his suffering that felt alien after the betrayal he had just endured. He mumbled a disjointed excuse about the storm, his voice raspy and cracked, his throat tight with unshed tears. Sarah didn't press him for details. She simply poured a steaming mug of black coffee and slid it toward his freezing hands. On the house, she whispered, a small gesture that felt life-changing the vacuum of his despair. In a city obsessed with status and superficial connections, such a simple act of unmonetized kindness struck Owen with the force of revelation. He stared at the swirling steam, a billionaire in potential but a beggar in reality, being served by a woman who clearly scraped by on pennies. It was a stark, blinding lesson in true worth, illuminating the difference between having money and having a soul. Sarah lingered for a moment, her eyes drifting to protective way. He clutched the wet box, her intuition sensing a story untold. Must be something pretty valuable in there to keep it dry while you soak, she observed, a faint, tired smile touching her lips. Owen nodded slowly, guarding his secret. "It's complicated. Some say it's useless. I hope it's everything." She didn't laugh, she didn't dismiss him as a delusional drifter or a failure. She simply nodded with a wisdom beyond her years. Well, the world is full of people who don't know the value of what they're holding. That single sentence resonated in Owen's chest, echoing the very battle he was fighting against a tech mogul image his wife demanded. He watched her walk away to wipe down another table, marveling at the quiet dignity she maintained in a place that offered none. He was shivering, broke, and alone, but for the first time that night, the icy grip of abandonment loosened slightly. Trust is a dangerous currency for a man with nothing left to lose, and Owen wasn't ready to spend it yet. But the vault door was cracking open. Hunger is a savage beast that cares nothing for pride, and Owen's stomach growled with ferocity that echoed in the quiet diner. He frantically patted his wet pockets, praying for a forgotten bill, but found only the emptiness that mirrored his post-divorce reality. Sarah Ellis, watching from the pass-through window, saw the panic flash in his eyes, a look she knew intimately from her own sleepless nights staring at eviction notices. She recognized the specific shame of a man who wants to provide but cannot even feed himself. Without consulting the manager or checking the cash register, she plated the blue plate speciale hearty slab of meatloaf and mashed potatoes and carried it with purpose. "You can't survive a storm on caffeine alone," she said gently, sliding the steaming plate in front of him with a grace that belied her fatigue. Owen stared at the food, the aroma triggering a visceral reaction, his face flushing with the heat of humiliation. I have no money," he stammered, his voice barely audible, bracing for the instant regret of admitting his total destitution. Sarah waved her hand dismissively, offering a smile that seemed to push back the shadows of the dim room. "Call a loan." She winked. "You can pay me back with interest when you're running the world." She wasn't doing this for a future billionaire. She was extending a hand to a fellow human who had been kicked out of the circle of dignity. It poses a profound question. If you had almost nothing, would you share with a stranger? Drop a yes if you believe in karma. Owen picked up the heavy metal fork, his hand trembling not just from cold, but from the overwhelming weight of her unconditional love for a stranger. The first bite was a revelation, the warmth spreading through his chest, thawing the ice that had encased his heart since the argument. He watched Sarah navigate the diner, dealing with rude patrons and a grease-stained environment, yet she moved with an elegance that money couldn't buy. She was the antithesis of his ex-wife, a woman with empty pockets, but a heart overflowing with generosity. He began to deconstruct his own prejudices, wondering about the hidden battles she fought while she smiled and poured coffee. She wasn't looking for a savior or a tech mogul. She was her own hero, surviving the grind one shift at a time. Witnessing her resilience made Owen feel a sharp pang of guilt for his own self-pity. He had a secret invention, a potential empire in a box. She had only her grit and her kindness, yet she was the one saving him. This meal was more than sustenance. It was a spiritual transaction, a reminder that humanity still flickered in the dark corners of the city. Owen realized that the betrayal he suffered didn't condemn the entire human race, and that Sarah's kindness was a mirror reflecting his potential vindication. He ate in reverent silence, silently swearing a blood oath to himself that this debt would be repaid 1,000 times over. As he scraped the plate clean, the reality of the closing time loomed. The diner lights dimmed, signaling the end of his temporary refuge. The storm outside hammered against the glass, promising a miserable, freezing night on the concrete. He didn't want to leverage Sarah's kindness any further, so he prepared to slip away into the wet darkness. He didn't know that Sarah Ellis was already analyzing the situation, her concern extending far beyond a warm meal. Owen stepped out of the diner's warmth, the wind immediately assaulting him, biting through his damp clothes like 1,000 needles. He had decided to remain an enigma, introducing himself only as Owen, a man seemingly broken by life's cruelty. He couldn't risk the danger of revealing he was a brilliant engineer or that the soggy box contained a billionaire-dollar secret. He was emotionally walled off, his heart calcified by cynicism, terrified that another gold digger might smell the potential and sink her claws in. He found a dry patch of concrete under the diner's awning, clutching his secret invention to his chest, watching Sarah lock the front door. Part of him yearned to confess, to scream that he could be a tech mogul and change her life, just to see the shock on her face. But the wounds from his divorce were too fresh, the sensation of being humiliated and used still pulsing in his veins like poison. He needed to verify if her kindness was organic, or if everyone in this city came with a hidden price tag. Sarah emerged, buttoning a coat that looked too thin for the weather, and spotted him lingering in the shadows like a forgotten ghost. She paused, her keys jingling, studying him with that same penetrating, soulful gaze that stripped away his pretenses. Owen stiffened against the wall, expecting her to threaten him with the police or demand he leave the premises. Instead, she sighed, a cloud of white breath escaping into the frigid air. "You really have nowhere to go, do you?" she asked, the statement landing heavy with sadness. "I'm fine." Owen lied through chattering teeth, his pride acting as a flimsy shield, just waiting for the rain to let up. It was a pathetic, Transparent lie the sky was a relentless sheet of gray water. This was the ultimate test, a moment where he measured her character against the cruelty he had known. He was daring her to abandon him, to confirm his dark theory that in the end, we are all alone. But Sarah didn't take the exit ramp. She stood her ground, her eyes drifting to the cardboard box he guarded with his life. "You're a terrible liar, Owen," she said softly, "and whatever is in that box must be worth dying for if you're protecting it like a baby." She didn't demand to see inside, respecting his boundary, a gesture that confused and disarmed him. His ex-wife would have torn it open, searching for value to extract or criticize. He tightened his grip until his knuckles turned white, waiting for the other shoe to drop, for betrayal to reveal itself. Be honest, in a world of scams, would you trust a homeless stranger? Sarah's eyes held no avarice, only a profound, tired concern that pierced his armor. She was passing his silent test with flying colors, dismantling his cynicism brick by brick. "Look, I wouldn't leave a stray dog out in this freeze, let alone a human being," she muttered, seemingly arguing with her own common sense. She was struggling too, living on the edge of poverty, but her moral compass was unwavering. Owen watched her wrestle with the risk, realizing this woman was jeopardizing her own safety for a stranger. It was a pivotal, breathless moment, the silence between them heavy with the gravity of destiny. Sarah took a decisive step closer, closing the physical and emotional distance, overriding her survival instincts with pure compassion. "I have a guest room," she announced, her voice steady but laced with vulnerability. "It's basically a closet. It smells like old books and the heater rattles, but it's dry." Owen stared at her, stunned by this shocking reveal of generosity. She was opening her sanctuary to a man the world had discarded. This wasn't just charity, it was a radical act of trust that defied every rule of the concrete jungle. He tried to refuse, mumbling about not wanting to be a burden, his sense of true worth currently scraping the bottom of the barrel. "I can't ask you to do that," he said, looking away. "I'm nobody. I'm just trouble." Sarah shook her head, a small, sad smile playing on her lips. "Nobody is nobody, Owen. Besides, you have fixer written all over you, and my toaster has been dead for a week." It was a gentle joke to bridge the gap, but it hinted that she saw utility and value where others saw waste. They walked a few blocks to her apartment in silence, the rain soaking them. But Owen felt a warmth radiating from her that had nothing to do with physics. The apartment was indeed tiny, a cramped one-bedroom in a decaying building, but it was immaculately clean and filled with a chaotic warmth. She showed him to the guest room, a glorified storage space with a narrow copper to Owen. It looked like the presidential suite. He set his secret invention down with reverence, feeling a surge of unconditional love for this humble space. "Towels are in the bathroom. Sleep until you feel human again," Sarah said, retreating to her room and audibly locking the door. The sound of the lock clicking was a stark reminder that trust is a gradient. She was kind, but she wasn't a fool. Owen sat on the edge of the cot, listening to the storm lash against the window, realizing how close he had come to the precipice. He was a husband no longer, a homeowner no longer, but in this tiny room, he was safe. That night, lying in the dark, Owen didn't sleep, his mind raced with complex algorithms and schematics for his prototype. Sarah's belief in him, however abstract, had acted as high-octane fuel for his drive to achieve vindication. He wasn't a freeloader, he was a dormant volcano, and now he had a safe harbor to prepare for the eruption. He silently vowed that if this invention worked, Sarah would never have to worry about a utility bill again. The next morning, he woke to the smell of burnt toast and the sound of Sarah humming a melody in the kitchen. It was domestic, intimate, and utterly heartbreaking because it highlighted the stark emptiness of his previous life. His marriage had been a transaction. This felt like a home. Sarah was proving that her generosity knew no bounds, sharing her poverty with a grace that shamed the rich. He walked into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes, and she pointed a butter knife at the toaster. "Well, Mr. Mystery, think you can work your magic?" she challenged playfully. Owen smiled, a genuine, unforced smile. "I think I can handle a toaster." It was a small, seemingly insignificant start, but every tech mogul begins with a single problem to solve. He didn't know it yet, but this cramped kitchen was the launch pad for a global revolution. Days bled into weeks, and a symbiotic routine solidified within the peeling walls of Sarah's apartment. By day, Owen became the building's phantom handyman, fixing leaky faucets and rewiring flickering lights to earn his keep in dignity. But by night, he underwent a metamorphosis. He worked feverishly on his secret invention, the eerie blue glow of the prototype illuminating his face like a mask. The useless box was evolving into a sophisticated machine, a testament to the tech mogul hiding inside the shell of a drifter. Sarah watched him sometimes in the doorway, fascinated by the laser focus in his eyes, realizing he was far more than a down-on-his-luck wanderer. She became his fierce protector, defending him against the venomous gossip of neighbors who branded him a freeloader and a parasite. He's working on something that matters. She'd snap at Mrs. Higgins in the hallway, and he pays his way in kindness, which is more than I can say for you. She didn't understand the tech, but she respected the fire that burned within him. Owen heard the whispers too, the slurs about him being a leech, and they stung his pride like salt in a wound, fueling his desire for revenge against the judgmental world. He wanted to scream that he was a genius, that he held the keys to the future, but he swallowed the humiliated rage. He channeled that dark energy into his work, soldering circuits with the precision of a surgeon, driven by Sarah's unwavering, blind support. She was his only investor, capitalizing his venture with sandwiches and faith instead of millions. One crisp evening, the breakthrough finally happened. The device hummed to life, emitting a stable, harmonic frequency that could revolutionize global data transfer. He sat back, exhausted but electrified, the taste of vindication sweet and metallic on his tongue. He wanted to rush to Sarah, to confess that he was on the verge of becoming a billionaire, but fear paralyzed him. What if it was a fluke? What if he failed again? The karma of his past defeats still haunted his confidence. Sarah came home late, dragging her feet, the weariness of the world etched into her posture. She saw the device pulsing with light and smiled weakly. "Looks like you're contacting the mothership, Owen." He chuckled, hastily covering the device with a cloth. "Something like that. It's going to change everything, Sarah." She patted his shoulder, a gesture of infinite comfort. "I believe you. Now, let's figure out how to stretch this pasta for 2 days." The contrast between his high-tech aspirations and their low-income reality was a jarring dissonance, a constant reminder of the ticking clock. He was living on borrowed time and borrowed grace, and he knew he had to make a decisive move soon. He loved Sarah not with flash-fire romance, but with a deep, unconditional love born of shared survival. He couldn't let her sink while he built a yacht. But secrets are heavy burdens, and the neighbor's toxicity was reaching a boiling point. They warned Sarah daily that he would rob her blind and leave her heartbroken. Owen worked harder, faster, driven by a desperate, frantic need to prove them all wrong. He wasn't just fixing a machine. He was engineering a miracle to save the only person who mattered. The morning began with rare, crisp sunshine, but destiny had scripted a cruel twist to shatter their fleeting peace. They were walking to the local market, laughing about a shared joke, feeling almost normal. Suddenly, a sleek, silver convertible tore around the corner and screeched to a halt, the engine purring with the aggressive arrogance of wealth. Owen froze, his blood running cold. He knew that car. He knew the vanity plate, and he knew the predator behind the wheel. His ex-wife stepped out, looking immaculate in sharp and designer couture that cost more than Sarah's entire existence. She lowered her sunglasses, her eyes scanning Owen's worn thrift store clothes before landing on Sarah with a look of pure, distilled disgust. Well, she sneered, her voice slicing through the morning air. "Looks like you found your level, Owen. From a mansion to whatever this tragic situation is." It was a calculated nuclear strike, designed to make him feel humiliated in front of his only ally. Sarah stepped forward instinctively, sensing the threat, but the ex-wife turned her laser focus on her, dissecting her poverty with a glance. "And you must be the little charity worker." She laughed, a cold, brittle sound. "Picking up my trash? Honey, he's a loser. I kicked out that deadweight for a reason." The words hung in the air, toxic and sharp, branding Owen as damaged goods, a husband who had failed at the basic task of success. Sarah stood there, shocked by the sheer, unprovoked malice. Owen clenched his fists until his nails dug into his palms, the old shame bubbling up the instant regret of being seen in the state paralyzing him. He wanted to shout about his secret invention, to tell her he was moments away from being a tech mogul, but his voice died in his throat. The gold digger was winning, controlling the narrative, reducing his complex struggle to a punchline. She was feeding on their discomfort, drawing energy from their pain. Passers-by began to stop and stare, drawn by the spectacle of wealth attacking poverty. "He's a leech," the ex-wife announced to the gathering crowd, playing to the audience. "Hell bleed you dry and leave you with nothing." It was a masterclass in public character assassination. Owen looked at Sarah, terrified that the seeds of doubt would finally take root, that she would see him through his ex-wife's eyes. But here is where the story pivots, where the true worth of a human spirit is tested under fire. Sarah didn't shrink away. She didn't look at Owen with suspicion. She looked at the ex-wife with a mixture of pity and hardened steel. The air crackled with tension, a classic showdown between the rich tyrant and the noble poor. Drop a heart in the comments if you stand with Sarah right now. The ex-wife got back in her car, satisfied with the emotional carnage, revving the engine as a final act of dominance. "Have fun with him." She shouted over the noise. "Don't say I didn't warn you." She peeled away, leaving a cloud of exhaust and silence in her wake. Owen couldn't look Sarah in the eye, waiting for the inevitable rejection, the accusation that he was just trash. But silence can be loud, and Sarah was about to break it with a hammer. The dust from the sports car settled, but the emotional debris was scattered everywhere, choking the air between them. Owen stood with his head bowed, the words trash and loser replaying his mind like a broken, sadistic record. He expected Sarah to ask him to leave, to save herself the social embarrassment of associating with a pariah. Instead, Sarah Ellis turned to the gawking crowd and delivered a dignified defense that would shame a saint. "Show's over," she declared, her voice steady and commanding. Cutting through the murmurs, "You saw a bully, not a victim. Go about your business." She then turned to Owen, lifting his chin with gentle but firm hand, forcing him to meet her gaze. "Trash?" she scoffed, her eyes blazing. That woman wouldn't know treasure if she tripped over in broad daylight. It was a moment of vindication that Owen hadn't expected, a fortress raised against the arrows of his past. "She doesn't know you, Owen. She knows your bank account, not your heart," Sarah said, her voice dropping to a fierce whisper. This defense began to crack the glacial ice around Owen's heart, melting the cynical walls he had spent years building. He realized that Sarah saw the true worth in him that he had struggled to see in himself. She wasn't defending a billionaire, she was defending a friend, and that loyalty meant more than any stock option or patent. "I am sorry you had to see that," Owen managed to choke out, his voice thick with shame. Sarah shrugged, adjusting her coat with a defiant snap. "I've dealt with worse. Real wealth isn't what you drive, it's how you treat people. And by that standard, she's the poorest person I've ever met." It was a profound statement, flipping the script on the gold digger narrative. Sarah was rewriting the definitions of success right there on the sidewalk. This was a precise moment Owen fell in love, not just a romantic attraction, but a deep, life-changing respect and adoration. He realized that unconditional love wasn't a myth. It was standing right in front of him in a worn-out coat and scuffed shoes. He wanted to give her the world, to hand her the keys to a kingdom she couldn't even imagine. But first, he had to finish the invention. He had to ensure he could offer her a future protected from vultures like his ex-wife. They walked home, the incident binding them closer together with invisible threads of solidarity. The neighbors who had watched were silent now, shamed by Sarah's courage and integrity. Owen felt a renewed fire in his gut. He wasn't just working for survival anymore. He was working for revenge in the best possible way, by succeeding massively. He would prove Sarah right. He would make sure her faith was the best investment she ever made. Back in the apartment, Owen went straight to his desk, his eyes dark with determination. "I'm going to finish it tonight," he declared. Sarah smiled, filling the kettle for tea. "I know you will." It was the calm before the storm, the quiet confidence before chaos returned. Because life rarely moves in a straight line, and a shocking reveal was about to test them both to their limits. Hit the like button if you respect Sarah's courage. The atmosphere in the small apartment was thick with tension, buzzing like a live wire. Owen was minutes away from the final, decisive test of his secret invention. He connected the main power source, his hands sweating, feeling the crushing weight of destiny pressing down on his shoulders. This was a singularity that would transform him from a homeless guest back into a tech mogul. Sarah watched from the doorway, holding her breath, sensing the seismic magnitude of the moment. He flipped the switch. The device hummed, lights flickered in a mesmerizing dance, and for a glorious, breathless 10 seconds, it worked perfectly, projecting a holographic interface that defied modern physics. But then a sharp, sickening pop echoed, followed by the acrid, stinging smell of burning ozone. The prototype sparked violently and died, a wisp of gray smoke curling up like a mockery of his dreams. It was a false defeat, but to Owen, it felt like the apocalypse. A critical component had freed a component that cost thousands of dollars he didn't have. Simultaneously, as if choreographed by a cruel god, a heavy, authoritative knock pounded on the door. It was the landlord, sliding a red eviction notice under the door. "Rent's late, Sarah. You got 48 hours or the sheriff comes to throw you out," he shouted through the wood. The timing was brutal, a double blow of bad karma that brought them to their knees. The invention was dead, and they were about to be homeless. Sarah picked up the notice, her hands trembling uncontrollably. She had depleted her meager savings feeding Owen and keeping the lights on for his experiments. Now, it seemed their kindness had led to absolute ruin. Owen stared at the black, lifeless screen of his device, feeling a wave of instant regret crash over him. He had dragged her down with him. He was the anchor, sinking her ship. I can fix it," he whispered, but his voice lacked conviction, hollowed out by guilt. The tension in the room was suffocating, a physical weight. Sarah didn't yell, which made it infinitely worse. She just sat on the frayed sofa and buried her face in her hands. "I don't know what to do, Owen," she admitted, her voice breaking. It was heartbreaking to see the strongest person he knew crumbling under the pressure he helped create. The betrayal here wasn't from a person, but from circumstance, a cosmic joke played at their expense. Owen looked at the fried component, his mind racing. He knew exactly what he needed to fix it, but it required money that Sarah kept in a small, dented tin jar in the kitchen for dire emergencies. It was a terrible, intrusive thought, a desperate thought born of panic. If he took it, he could fix the machine and save them both. But if he took it, he would look like the thief everyone warned her about. It was a classic moral dilemma. Do the wrong thing for the right reason? He needed to act fast. The eviction notice was a ticking clock, counting down to their destruction. He looked at Sarah's sobbing form, then at the jar. He made a choice, a risky, terrifying gamble that would lead to a massive misunderstanding. Everything was falling apart, and the shocking reveal of his plan was about to go horribly, tragically wrong. Desperation is a hallucinogen that makes risky choices seem logical, and Owen was intoxicated with the need to save them. While Sarah was in the shower, crying softly under the spray to hide her tears, Owen made a call on an old prepaid phone he had salvaged. He was contacting a former associate, a shady fence who could source the rare tech part he needed within the hour, but the conversation sounded incriminating. "I need the money now. You'll get it? Don't worry. I'm taking it tonight," he whispered urgently into the phone, his eyes darting to the bathroom door. Sarah, turning off the water, heard his hushed voice through the paper-thin walls. She froze, a cold dread washing over her, chilling her more than the air. She heard "taking it tonight and get the money," and her mind instantly connected the dots to the tin jar in the kitchen, her live savings. The betrayal felt like a physical knife twisting in her chest. The neighbors were right, her ex-husband was right, maybe even Owen's ex-wife was right. Was he just a con artist playing the long game? She stepped out, wrapped in a towel, water dripping from her hair, just as Owen was reaching for the jar on the counter. It was an innocent action, was checking the amount to see if it was enough to off offense, but to Sarah, it was the smoking gun. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice trembling with a volatile mix of rage and heartbreaking disappointment. Owen jumped, guilt written all over his face because he was planning to use it, but to multiply it, not steal it. "Sarah, I can explain," he stammered, the classic, cliched line of the guilty. "You're stealing from me?" she whispered, tears welling up again. "After everything?" After I defended you against the world? The look in her eyes was worse than being kicked out of his mansion. It was the loss of the only person who believed in him. No. Sarah, listen, I need this to fix the machine. It's the only way to save us. Owen pleaded, clutching the jar like a lifeline. But Sarah was past listening. She was in survival mode, her trust shattered. Save us? You're saving yourself. That's my rent money. Owen, that's my life. She snatched the jar from his hands, the coins rattling like the broken pieces of their friendship. It was a misunderstanding fueled by fear and past trauma. Sarah saw a gold digger in reverse. Owen saw a necessary sacrifice for a life-changing payout. They stood there, the silence stretching between them, a chasm opening up that seemed impossible to cross. Owen realized he couldn't explain his way out of this. Words were useless now. He needed to show results. Be honest. Would you have trusted him in that moment? I'm not stealing it, Owen said quietly, his voice firm with a desperate resolve. I promise you, Sarah, you have to trust me one last time. But Sarah turned away, clutching the jar to her chest as if it contained her soul. I think I've trusted you enough, she said coldly. It was the lowest point, the moment where love turns to ash. Owen knew he had to leave, not because he wanted to, but because staying would only cause her more pain until he could prove his true worth. The rain had returned, fittingly, mirroring the bleak night they met, completing the cycle of misery. Owen packed his few belongings and the broken prototype into the same soggy cardboard box, feeling like Sisyphus watching the boulder roll back down. He felt the weight of destiny pressing down on him, heavy and suffocating. He was leaving Sarah to believe he had abandoned her, confirming her worst fears just like everyone else in her life. It was a heartbreaking sacrifice, but he couldn't sit there and watch her get evicted. He had to go out and slay the dragon alone. He wrote a note, his hand shaking, leaving it on the pillow of the cot. I will fix this. I promise. It seemed meager, a pathetic consolation for the chaos he had brought into her life. He slipped out the door while she was in her room, the click of the latch sounding like a gunshot in the quiet apartment. He was back on the streets, alone, but this time he had a fire in his belly that could burn down cities. Sarah emerged later, finding the room empty and cold. She read the note and crumbled it up, throwing it across the room with a scream of frustration. She felt foolish, humiliated by her own naivety. She believed he had run away to avoid the eviction, leaving her to clean up the mess. Coward, she whispered, the tears finally flowing freely. She prepared herself for the inevitable loss of her apartment, her faith in humanity shattered into dust. Meanwhile, Owen was running through the rain, heading toward the industrial district, driven by a maniacal focus. He didn't have the money for the part, so he had to steal it not from Sarah, but from a high-security scrapyard that disposed of aerospace waste. He was a billionaire genius acting like a common thief, driven by a love he couldn't yet express. He scaled a razor-wire fence, cutting his hand, and dug through piles of waste until he found the capacitor. He found shelter in an abandoned subway station, working by the flickering light of his phone screen. He soldered the stolen part into the prototype, his hand steady despite the biting cold and the blood. Work! Damn you, he hissed at the machine. He powered it up. No sparks this time. The holographic interface bloomed in the darkness. Stable, beautiful, worth billions. He had done it, but he was still a homeless man in wet clothes with a billion-dollar device in a cardboard box. He needed a suit. He needed a meeting. He needed to storm the castle of the corporate world. He wasn't doing this for the fame of being a tech mogul anymore. He was doing it to buy Sarah a house, a restaurant, a life. The vindication was close, but he had one final, impossible hurdle: getting past the gatekeepers. He looked at his reflection in a dirty, puddle-wild hair, mud-streaked face. He looked crazy, but he felt powerful, charged with purpose. The instant regret of leaving Sarah was replaced by a laser focus on the end game. He would return, not as a burden, but as a savior. The sun was coming up over the skyline. It was time to go to war for the woman who saved him. Owen Richardson didn't walk to the headquarters of EtherTech. He marched with the momentum of a freight train. The massive glass building pierced the skyline, a fortress of wealth and power that usually excluded men like him. He walked right up to the front desk, looking like a madman with his cardboard box, dripping water onto the polished marble. The security guard stepped forward immediately, hands on their holsters, sniffing the air for danger. "Sir, you need to leave," one warned, assessing the threat level. "I'm here to see CEO Anna," Owen demanded, his voice booming, echoing off the marble walls like a canyon. "And I'm not leaving until I do." The receptionist sneered, reaching for the phone to call the police, a look of disdain painted on her face. It was the same look his ex-wife gave him, the same dismissal of his humanity. But Owen didn't flinch. He slammed the box onto the pristine counter. "Tell her Owen Richardson is here. Tell her I solved the quantum latency problem." The name Richardson rang a faint bell. He had been a known engineer before his divorce and downfall, though considered washed up and forgotten. The receptionist paused, intrigued by the sheer audacity of the demand. "You have 2 minutes before I call the cops," she said, dialing the executive line. Owen stood tall, ignoring the whispers of the employees in the lobby, who treated him like a spectacle. He was fighting for Sarah's future, and that gave him the armor of a gladiator. Upstairs, the CEO, a woman of sharp intellect who respected genius over appearance, took the call. She remembered Owen's early papers. She knew he was brilliant but troubled. "Send him up," she commanded, curiosity piquing. The guards escorted him, holding their noses, into the gold-plated elevator. Owen watched the numbers climb, his heart pounding against his ribs. This was the moment of shocking reveal. He entered the boardroom, a long mahogany table filled with suits and skepticism. They gasped at his appearance, the smell of the street entering with him. "This is a joke," one executive scoffed, adjusting his tie. Owen didn't speak. He opened the box, took out the device, and placed it on the table. He flipped the switch. The room filled with a holographic data stream, faster and more complex than anything they had ever seen. The silence that followed was heavy with the scent of money. "It works," the CEO whispered, standing up, her eyes wide. "My God, it actually works." Owen looked at them, his eyes burning with intensity. "It's worth billions," he said calmly, "and I want a deal today. Right now. Cash up front." He wasn't asking, he was dictating terms. He channeled every ounce of revenge and drive into that negotiation. "Why the rush, Mr. Richardson?" the CEO asked, eyeing his tattered clothes. "I have a debt to pay," Owen replied, thinking of the diner, the eviction notice, and the woman who gave him free meatloaf. A debt that can't wait. He was a tech mogul again, but with a new soul. The contract was drawn up. The pen was in his hand. Destiny was signed on the dotted line. The ink on the contract was barely dry when the wire transfer hit Owen's newly opened account. The numbers were staggering enough to buy the mansion he was kicked out of 10 times over. The executives wanted to pop champagne, to celebrate the acquisition of the century with expensive toasts. "Let's get you cleaned up. Owen, let's call the press." The CEO beamed, seeing stock prices soaring in her mind. But Owen raised a hand, stopping the celebration cold. "No press. Not yet," he said firmly. "I have unfinished business." To him, the money wasn't a victory, it was just a tool, a means to an end. The real victory was waiting in a small, damp apartment across town. He refused the champagne, refused the immediate interview. He had a karma correction to make, and it had to be done personally. He requested only one thing from the firm, immediately: a barber, a tailor, and a car. He needed to shed the skin of the homeless man and step back into the armor of a billionaire. But this time, the man inside the suit was different. He was forged in the fires of humility and hunger. As the barber shaved off his beard, revealing the jawline of the man he used to be, Owen stared at himself. He looked the same, but his eyes were different, deeper, kinder, wiser. "You look like a new man, sir," the tailor said, adjusting the cuffs of a bespoke Italian suit. "I am," Owen replied. He checked the time. The 48-hour eviction window was almost up. Sarah was likely packing her boxes, feeling the crushing weight of the world collapsing on her. The thought made his chest tighten with anxiety. He had to hurry. The betrayal she felt needed to be washed away with the truth. He stepped out of the building, not into the rain this time, but into a waiting limousine. He directed the driver to the diner first. He needed to set the stage. He wasn't just going to pay her back. He was going to restore her faith in the universe. This was the vindication of the good guys, the moment where the script flips. The drive felt like an eternity. He gripped the door handle, his knuckles white. He was terrified. What if she wouldn't listen? What if she threw him out? Money can fix a lot of things, but it can't fix a broken heart overnight. He had to be careful. He had to show her that the gold digger accusations were wrong, that he was the real deal. He pulled up to the diner just as the sun was setting. It was a golden hour, bathing the gritty street in a warm glow. Destiny was setting the lighting for the final act. He took a deep breath, clutching a velvet folder in his hand, the deed to a new life. It was time to reveal the secret invention was never the machine, it was the friendship they built. The diner was bustling with the dinner rush, the air thick with the smell of fries and coffee. Sarah moved mechanically, her eyes red-rimmed and dull. She had lost her apartment that morning. Her stuff was in black garbage bags in the back room. She was effectively homeless, just like Owen had been. She felt a bitter, crushing irony in it. The bell chimed, and she didn't even look up. "Sit anywhere," she called out flatly, her spirit broken. Then the room went quiet. A hush fell over the regulars, forks pausing midair. Sarah looked up, confused by the sudden silence. Standing in the doorway was a man who looked like Owen, but polished, glowing with health and wealth, wearing a suit that cost more than the diner itself. It was a shocking reveal that stopped time. "Owen?" she whispered, unsure if she was hallucinating from stress and fatigue. He walked toward her, not with the shuffle of a broken man, but with the stride of a titan. But his eyes were soft, locked on hers. "Hello, Sarah," he said, his voice smooth and clear. Before she could react, the door chimed again. This time, it wasn't a customer. It was Owen's ex-wife, panting, looking frantic. She had seen the news of the EtherTech deal, online the return of the tech mogul. She rushed in, pushing past customers, ignoring the humiliated stares she got days ago. "Owen, darling," she shrieked, putting on a performance worthy of an Oscar. "I've been looking everywhere for you. I was so worried." She tried to cling to his arm, marking her territory, the ultimate gold digger, sensing the return of the gold. The contrast was visceral, the greedy ex-wife in pearls, and Sarah in her stained apron. Sarah took a step back, feeling small and used. "So, it was true," she said, her voice trembling. "You were rich all along. You were just playing with us. An experiment?" The betrayal felt fresh again. She thought he had used her for a social experiment. Owen gently shook off his ex-wife's claw-like grip as if it were a spider. "No, Sarah, I wasn't playing," he said, ignoring his ex-wife completely. "Owen, baby, let's go home." The ex-wife purred, trying to regain control. "You don't belong in a dump like this." She shot a venomous look at Sarah. "And you certainly don't need her anymore." The audacity was breathtaking. She thought she could just hit reset, because the bank balance was back. Owen turned slowly to his ex-wife. The entire diner held its breath. This was the moment of instant regret for her, though she didn't know it yet. The air crackled with anticipation. What would you do in Owen's shoes right now? He looked at her, then at Sarah, and smelled a cold, final smile for the past, and a warm, inviting one for the future. The silence in the diner was absolute, heavier than the storm outside had ever been. Owen brushed off the sleeve of his suit where his ex-wife had touched him, as if wiping away dirt. "Home?" Owen repeated, his voice dangerously calm, barely above a whisper, but carrying to every corner of the room. "I don't have a home with you. Victoria, I haven't had a home with you for years." The rejection was public, loud, and brutal. It was the ultimate revenge, not screaming, but total indifference. "But the deal, the money, we can start over," she stammered, her mask slipping, revealing the panic underneath. "We?" Owen laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "There is no we. You kicked out your husband because he was broke. You mocked him. You humiliated him." He pointed a finger at Sarah. "And you mocked the only person who treated me like a human being when I had nothing to offer." He turned to the room, addressing everyone, his voice rising with passion. This woman, he gestured to Sarah, fed me when I had nothing. She gave me shelter when I was homeless. She believed in me when I was a failure. He turned back to his ex-wife, his eyes cold as ice. You want to know my true worth? It's standing right there behind the counter. And you aren't worth the dust on her shoes. The ex-wife stood there, mouth agape, her face turning a violent shade of red. The humiliated predator became the prey. The diner erupted in cheers. The regulars, who had watched Sarah struggle for years, clapped and whistled. It was a scene of pure karma. Serve hot. Victoria turned and fled, the sound of her heels clicking frantically as she ran from the truth she couldn't handle. Owen turned his back on the door, focusing entirely on Sarah. She was crying now, overwhelmed by the whirlwind of emotions. I thought you stole the money, she sobbed. I thought you left me. Owen reached across the counter and took her rough, hard-working hands in his. I had to leave to save us. Sarah, I'm sorry I couldn't tell you, but I never left you. Not really. He reached into his jacket pocket. I made a promise in that note. I said I would fix this. He pulled out the velvet folder. The invention. It's worth billions, Sarah. But none of it matters without the person who saved the inventor. It was a declaration of unconditional love. Not necessarily romantic yet, but something deeper as soul connection forged in the rain. Sarah looked at him, wiping her eyes with her apron, disbelief warring with hope. You're an idiot, Owen Richardson. She laughed through the tears. A billionaire idiot. The tension broke. The shocking reveal was over, and now the healing could begin. But Owen had one last surprise, one that would cement this life-changing day forever. Owen walked around the counter, ignoring the health code and the stunned patrons, and stood next to Sarah. He opened the velvet folder and handed her the document inside. It wasn't a check. It was a deed. I bought the building, Owen said softly. Not this diner. The apartment building. The one you were getting evicted from. Sarah stared at the paper, her hands shaking, her breath catching in her throat. And he continued, flipping the page to reveal a second document. I bought this diner too. You're not the waitress anymore, Sarah. You're the owner. You can run it, sell it, burn it down, it's yours. It was the ultimate vindication for every double shift, every rude customer, every moment of fear. She was a tech mogul's partner, but more importantly, she was free. Why? She whispered, looking up at him, tears streaming down her face. Because you invested in me when I was bad stock. Owen smiled, tears glistening in his own eyes. This is your dividend. He revealed his billionaire status not as a flex, but as a tool to grant freedom. He credited her belief as a true invention, the catalyst that made the machine possible. He took her hand, leading her out of the kitchen, past a cheering crowd. Come on, there's a car waiting. We have a lot of neighbors to apologize to, and I think Mrs. Higgins needs a new toaster. The diner patrons cheered as they walked out, a modern fairy tale ending not with a kiss, but with a handshake of destiny. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. The sky was clear, the stars twinkling above the city lights, mirroring the sparkle in their eyes. Owen and Sarah stood on the sidewalk, the same spot where they faced ex-wife, but now they stood as victors. So what now? Sarah asked, clutching the deed to her chest. Owen looked at the horizon. The world opened before them. Now, Owen grinned, the way of the past finally gone. Now we build something new, something real. He opened the car door for her. After you, boss. Sarah Ellis, the waitress who saved a billionaire, stepped into her new life, proving that sometimes the good guys do win, and karma delivers the most beautiful rewards. Owen's journey proves a universal truth that we often forget money might be able to buy a mansion, but it takes a pure heart to build a home. The true invention wasn't the machine in the box, it was the unbreakable bond formed between two strangers in a storm, proving that your value is defined by who you are, not what you have. If you believe that kindness is the ultimate superpower and that no act of love is ever wasted, then you have found your tribe. Click that subscribe button right now and join a community that champions the good in the world. Let's make sure this message reaches everyone who needs it. Hit the like button as a salute to Sarah's integrity. Drop a comment below Have you ever had a Sarah in your life who helped you when you were down? Tell us your story. We read every single one. And finally, share this video with someone who needs a reminder that their breakthrough might be just around the corner. And while you are here, the journey doesn't have to end. Our channel is a treasure chest filled with stories just as powerful and emotional as this one. Dive into our archives right here and discover your next favorite tale. But don't get too comfortable, because we are already working on our next masterpiece. Turn on that notification bell so you're the first to witness the next emotional roller coaster. Trust me, you won't want to miss the surprises we have coming next.